You optimized every dollar. The portfolio is bigger than it has ever been. And you are still lying awake at 3 in the morning running the numbers in your head. If that sounds familiar, you are not alone. The Federal Reserve's latest data shows 38% of Americans earning over $100,000 still report high or extremely high financial stress. Not people struggling to get by, people who hit the number and still lie awake. If you are in that group with income above 6 figures and a portfolio that is growing and doing everything right, and you still feel that low hum of money anxiety that will not quite go away, this is not a portfolio problem. It is an architecture problem. The math that builds the biggest account and the math that lets you sleep are not always the same equation. And most people never realize there are two equations to solve. Here's what nobody tells you. Peace of mind is not a bonus you unlock after hitting your target number. It is a separate variable. It has its own inputs. And if you never design for it deliberately, you can build a very impressive portfolio and still lose sleep every night you hold it. That is what we are going to look at today on the Paycheck Lab. Let's start with Andre. Andre is 41. He has been disciplined for 15 years. He maxed his 401k every year. He has $380,000 in index funds. By almost any measure, he is ahead. His financial advisor told him so. His spreadsheet agrees. But last March, when the market dropped to 9% in 3 weeks, Andre did not feel ahead. He felt exposed. He could not stop checking his balance. He ran projections at midnight. He snapped at his wife on a Tuesday morning for no reason she understood. The portfolio did not permanently change, but his sleep did. For 6 weeks. Here is a question Andre never asked himself. Was the portfolio optimized for maximum return, or was it optimized for him to actually hold through a downturn without losing his mind? Those are different portfolios. This is what I call the sleep test. Before you make any significant financial decision, you ask one question. If the market drops 20% next month, can I hold this position without selling, without panicking, and without it wrecking my relationships? If the answer is no, the position is not sized correctly for you, regardless of what the math says, the optimal allocation should be. The sleep test is not about being conservative. It is about being honest. An allocation you can hold through a crash is worth more than an allocation that is theoretically optimal but practically unbearable. Because an investor who panic sells at the bottom and buys back at the top does not get the theoretical return. They get something much worse. The data is clear here. Behavioral finance research consistently finds that the average investor underperforms the market, not because their investments are bad, but because emotional decisions disrupt their strategy. The math on paper and the math in practice diverge the moment fear enters the room. Andre's problem was not his index funds. It was that he had no buffer between his life and his investments. Every dollar he had was in the market, which meant every market move was a direct message to his nervous system. Imagine a graph. On the left side, you have a portfolio with zero cash reserve. Every line on that chart connects directly to your cortisol level. Market up, you feel okay. Market down, you feel personally threatened. The line and your nervous system are synchronized. Now imagine a second graph. Same portfolio, but there's a flat bar of cash sitting alongside it, about 3 months of living expenses in a high-yield savings account. That flat bar does not earn much, but it does something the market cannot. It decouples your nervous system from the daily price action. The volatile line keeps moving. You stop watching it every hour because you know you do not need to sell anything to pay your bills this month or next month or the month after that. That buffer is not dead money. That is what I call the buffer premium. It is the price you pay for the ability to hold your long-term investments through the worst periods without being forced to make the worst decisions. Here's the math that most portfolio optimizers skip. If a cash buffer earning 3.5% in a high-yield account allows you to hold your equity position through a market drop instead of selling at the bottom, the actual return on that cash buffer is not 3.5%. It is the difference between what you would have sold at and what the market recovered to. During a typical bear market recovery, that gap is enormous. In the 18 months following the 2020 crash, the S&P 500 recovered over 70% from its low. An investor who held earned that recovery. An investor who sold in panic and bought back after the news looked good did not. The cash buffer is not the part of your portfolio earning the lowest return. Psychologically, it may be the highest performing asset you own. If you want to subscribe to one video a week that actually runs the numbers rather than motivating you to chase them, the Paycheck Lab is where that happens. Hit subscribe. It is free and it will keep paying you back. Now here is the part where someone pushes back. And I want to address it directly because it is a legitimate concern. You could say if Andre just had better emotional discipline, he would not need a cash buffer. You could say the optimal portfolio is fully invested and the buffer premium is just the cost of being psychologically weak. That is the wrong frame for two reasons. First, the research on this is consistent. A survey released in May 2026 found that financial anxiety does not significantly decrease as income rises. Someone earning $60,000 a year and someone earning $150,000 a year report nearly identical rates of financial anxiety. What did reduce anxiety was net worth structure, specifically having a financial cushion and low liabilities. Income does not buy peace. Architecture does. Second sequence of returns, risk is not emotional. It is mathematical. If you are drawing down your portfolio during retirement or if you need to access cash during a downturn for any reason, selling depressed assets permanently reduces the capital base available for recovery. That is not a fear response. That is arithmetic. The buffer premium is not just psychological insurance. It is protection against being forced to crystallize losses at the worst possible moment. The bucket framework that Morningstar has written about extensively makes exactly this point. The cash bucket does not exist to earn a return. It exists to give your long-term portfolio time to recover without interruption. The bucket that earns the least return enables the buckets that earn the most return to actually work as designed. This brings us to the second misconception I want to pull apart. A lot of people hear the sleep test and assume it means they should invest less aggressively. It does not. The sleep test is not about reducing your equity exposure across the board. It is about isolating the part of your money that you genuinely do not need for 3 to 5 years and letting that part work as hard as the math says it should. Think of it as two piles. Pile 1 is your buffer. This is 12 months of living expenses sitting in cash or a high-yield savings account. This money is not trying to beat the market. It is trying to make sure you never have to access Pile 2 at a bad time. Pile 2 is everything else, fully invested. Diversified, left alone. No checking the balance at midnight because you already know Pile 1 covers any realistic short-term scenario. Most people run their entire financial life out of Pile 2 with no Pile 1. That is why 9% market drop in 3 weeks feels like a personal crisis. It is not that the drop is catastrophic. It is that there is no buffer between the market and their month. Charles Schwab's 2025 Modern Wealth Survey found something that did not make many headlines. When Americans defined wealth, more and more of them were describing it in terms of freedom and control and peace of mind, rather than a specific dollar number. The number to feel financially comfortable was $839,000. The number to feel wealthy was 2.3 million. But what actually moved the needle on how people felt day to day was not whether they hit either of those numbers. It was whether they felt like they had margin, whether they felt like they could handle what came next. Margin is another word for buffer. And buffer is a design choice, not a number you reach. Here is the protocol. 3 steps. Step 1 is to run the sleep test on your current position. Look at your portfolio right now. Ask what happens to your behavior if the balance drops 20% in the next 60 days. If the honest answer involves panic or forced selling or 3 weeks of bad sleep, you have identified a gap, not in your returns, in your architecture. Step 2 is to build your buffer premium. Take 12 months of living expenses and move that money into a high-yield savings account separate from your investment account. Automate a monthly transfer until you hit that number. This is not money you are pulling out of investments permanently. It is money you are deploying to protect the investments you already have from your own worst decisions under pressure. Step 3 is to recalibrate what optimization means. The optimal portfolio is not the one with the highest theoretical return. It is the one with the highest return you will actually hold through a full market cycle without sabotaging. For most people, that means slightly less in equities and slightly more in buffer than a pure math model suggests. The math model does not account for the cost of panic. You have to account for it yourself. Here is the reframe I want you to carry out of this video. You have been measuring your financial progress in portfolio balance. That is one metric. It is not the only one. The second metric is nights of uninterrupted sleep. The third is the number of financial decisions you made from a place of calm rather than fear in the last 12 months. Those 3 metrics together are your actual financial health score. A $500,000 portfolio with a 12-month cash buffer and low fixed costs and no debt that forces you to stay in a job you hate is worth more in practical terms than a $700,000 portfolio that requires you to check the market every morning before you can decide how your day is going to feel. That $200,000 difference is not just a number. It is the difference between owning your Tuesday and being owned by it. Every dollar in the buffer is a morning you wake up without dread. That is not a soft benefit. That is the return. Drop a comment with your current buffer situation. Are you holding 12 months in cash, or 6 or 3 or 0? Tell me what the market does to your sleep when it drops. And if you are 35 to 50 trying to build a portfolio you can actually hold through what comes next, hit subscribe. We publish one of these every day.